time I've mentioned herbs to someone, the Chinese herbs, people's reactions always, do you know what's in it? There's always like people are always distrusting of it.
Like a very rare thing where at 4-5 mm of endometrium lining we can conceive because the uterus was very well balanced.
Qi initially is much bigger than our human bodies. The entire living existence has a kind of qi. It's called yuan qi. It means a kind of original qi.
The story of TCM actually begins with the ancient Chinese belief of the Tao. Some of you might remember we did an episode on the Tao. We'll put links below. But the Tao is basically about the fundamental nature of the universe and living in harmony with it. And if you remember, it's about two opposing forces, opposing yet complementary, forces of yin and yang. And the Tao believes that yin and yang exist in everything in nature. And it's important for them to be in balance, even in the human body. And that really is the basis of TCM. The earliest known records that we know was, I think, the Huangdi Neijing, which is also known as the Yellow Emperor's Inner Canon. And here, there's a lot of talk about qi. Now, qi is the energy, the life force that flows within us. And it's believed that when there are blockages or stagnancies in the qi, that's when there are issues and illnesses in the human body. Qi is also, some of you might know qi as prana. In Ayurveda, it's known as prana, but it's basically the life force that exists within the human body. And TCM actually, surprisingly, developed through trial and error. So they have a system of herbs. There are various techniques like cupping, acupuncture, gua sha. There is tuina massage. But a lot of it developed through being passed down generations, and they're very, very secretive about their way of doing things. Today, TCM is widely practiced all over the world, and there are millions of people who found it useful. I, for one, have found it extremely useful. Welcome to Wellness Curated. This is your host, Anshu Bahanda. And as we talk about healing traditions across cultures, we have two fabulous practitioners here with us today to talk about TCM, or traditional Chinese medicine. We have Darren Rose, who's based in the UK, who does the whole range from herbal medicines to cupping to acupuncture to tuina to gua sha, the whole lot. And then we have Jasmine Modi, who for she's based in India. Jasmine is based in India. And for 27 years, she has been an expert in acupuncture, and she's helped with facial rejuvenation, with IVF support, with detox. She also works with the Tata Center for Cancer, and she's done research on CIPN. Welcome to the chat, Jasmine and Darren, and thank you for being here with us today. So, Jasmine, I'm going to start with you. I'm going to start by asking you about a very basic thing about TCM, and that is this whole concept of yin and yang, these opposing complementary forces that need to be balanced for our well-being. Can you explain to us, how does that work?
See, like how you rightly explained in the start, in the brief, that the yin and yang are two fundamental forces through which the universe exists. So anything that we see, feel, touch, understand is divided into yin and yang. Okay? They are opposite in nature, but yet they are indispensable. Now, when a patient comes to me, the moment they enter, the first thing that we will try to understand, the patient is more leaning towards yin or more leaning towards yang. There are various ways through which we can understand whether the problem is yin or yang. Like, for example, a patient comes and complains that, okay, I have breathing issues only at night time, which means it's more of a yin problem, because yin is night, yang is day. Yin is female, yang is male. Yin is subtle, Yang is stronger. Yin is continuously working organs, Yang is hollow organs. So, like if somebody comes with a problem like, say, acidity, which means it's more of a hollow organ problem. So, it's a Yang problem. Like if a person comes with some allergy, which is like distributed throughout the skin, throughout the body, which means it's Yang. If it's concentrated into a smaller area, it's Yin. So that is how we distribute the ailments into Yin and Yang. Now,
Right.
beautifully, this Yin and Yang manifest themselves through 5 elements. Those 5 elements are wood, fire, earth, metal, water. Okay. So, like, there are different personality traits, different emotional issues. Each and every element will manifest itself into physical as well as some metaphysical form. Like, say, a person who's coming to me and he will be continuously moving. Yeah, his leg is continuously shaking. He's like multitasking. That person will be like having a lot of anger issues. That person may have a lot of muscular issues, muscular aches, pains, or any muscle related problems. Then that person is categorized as a wood element person. That is how analysis or diagnosis of TCM is done in acupuncture.
And Jasmine, do you also have a combination of the different elements?
Yes,
So could
we
you
do
say
have.
he's a bit water, a bit fire?
Yes, we do have
Oh,
that.
okay,
There will be a constitution of 2 or 3 elements.
okay. So you use this as the basis and then you build up from there.
Yes,
Thank
absolutely.
you. Qi is central to TCM, right?
Absolutely.
So, Darren, can you elaborate for me what is Qi and how does Qi influence everything, the mental health, the physical health, the health of the spirit? How does it affect everything?
Qi initially is much bigger than our human bodies. The entire living existence has a kind of qi. It's called yuan qi. It means a kind of original qi. When we come into existence, we start to have our own system of energy that begins. So we differentiate constitutional energy, which is coming from when you're first born into the world, what you get from your parents. We could link it a little bit to what we would describe in Western medicine as kind of inheritance, genetic inheritance. This is our kind of constitutional energy, and it's a kind of reserve, a reservoir, if you like, of our and also to a degree the different health aspects that we may have acquired from our parents, and all of these things are kind of kept within our what we call Jing, but essentially is this genetic inheritance, which is at the beginning of everything, really. So this is all our inherited kind of Qi, if you like, but it's inherited not only from our parents, but also from, you know, whoever we think is the bigger. Obviously, in Taoism, they say it's the big Tao. And then once you're born into the world, you have something which we call post-heaven Qi. So it's Qi which is made after we arrive in the world. Qi is the fundamental underneath everything, underpinning everything. And then how we spend it is the kind of foundation, really, of how we use Chinese medicine to bring people back into balance again. But, you know, I'm sure you also find that when we're talking to clients, you know, a lot of our time we're doing is, or a lot of the things that we're doing is re-educating a patient expenditure of energy, really. And most of the time people are running on empty because when they're tired, they have a coffee, they have a tea, or they have another tea, and then they push themselves past feeling exhausted in order to get another piece of work done. And then they stay up late because the boss needs something done and they can't not do it. And then they have to wake up early because they've got kids. And, you know, we're always running a little bit on empty. And the problem with that, it's fine for a short period of time. And then after time, your Qi goes down.
So, Darren, you talk about bringing your clients back into balance. So tell me, when someone comes to you, how do you do this combination of these various things to get people into balance?
Yeah, I mean, we're very lucky, I think, with Chinese medicine, because it has such a long history. They've worked out all of the kinks, and we haven't evolved really. We haven't grown extra gills so that we can filter pollution, or nothing's changed. We're all the same human beings as we used to be, with all the same issues. But I think if we boil everything down to its complete fundamental, all disharmony is created because we have a resistance to change at some level. So resistance to change in that instance may end up creating stagnation or deficiency, which will lead you to get a cold. And it's quite often we get colds when we travel, isn't it? Especially being on the plane, for instance, or a few days of being overwhelmed by the heat. Stagnation of qi, stagnation of yin is often a resistance to change, resistance to the situation that you're in at the time. There's lots of ways of looking at Chinese medicine, and we're lucky to have many models, in fact, actually to look at how the body works. In my own personal practice, I mostly use the pulse. So Chinese medicine has got pulse diagnosis, which I'm sure you've experienced. What's wonderful about that is it's a conversation, and it's a conversation between the person who's on the couch, so the person that's being, well, we could say treated, and the practitioner who's trying to, I wouldn't say heal, because that's it's an interesting word. It's more of a Western approach to it. But as a practitioner, I think what I'd frame myself as somebody who's helping facilitate the change that's needed. What that means is that the person whose pulse I'm taking, their Shen, or their kind of, we could say, organizing consciousness or subconscious or whatever you want to call it, is allowing through the blood vessels and the heart pumping, the conversation for me to listen to through my fingers. And in that dialogue, I'll be able to understand what the patient's needing in the present moment. And which means that I'm not really in charge of the treatment, actually. The patient's totally in charge, and they know exactly what they need, and all we're doing is listening to what's happening and responding to that. So the treatment for me hinges around taking pulse, being present, listening to what the pulse is telling me.
So very personalized.
Absolutely.
Very personalized.
And Chinese medicine is coming more from Taoism, which is more about coming from a lot more like a sage kind of approach, isn't it? It's more like the Yoda, it's more like Yoda from Star Wars, instead of having to go and fight against, it's allowing the change to happen by being the right conduit for that, I think.
Thank you. That was wonderful. Thank you for that. Now, Jasmine, I want to ask you about acupuncture. Talk me through, how do you manage to restore balance with these little needles?
So when acupuncture needle has been inserted in the body will release almost 16 different types of amino acids, okay, which will act like a messenger, and they will send signal to your brain. And from the brain, like, for example, if I am puncturing here, okay, the signals are going to certain cortex of your brain where I need the changes to happen. And from there, the healing takes place and your central nervous gets activated, and that area which needs to be healed starts getting healing. Okay, that's how actually acupuncture needles work, by activating your central nervous system. When a patient will come, like how Darren explained, the first and foremost thing is pulse diagnosis, because we will exactly know what is happening inside a patient's body. Okay, and accordingly, a treatment plan will be formulated, wherein we will decide set of needles, how many needles will be put to balance that imbalances that we have found out through pulse diagnosis, tongue diagnosis. There are various different ways of diagnosis through which, okay. As far as number of needles are concerned, at least my teacher has taught me minimum needle, maximum cure. Okay, a good acupuncturist is someone who will insert very few needles and should get maximum cure. If you put like 50, 60 needles, then it's like by hook or by crook, you're going to hit the target point. That does not make sense. And those few needles, maximum should be like 10, minimum should be like 2 needles, And in those many number of needles, you should be able to achieve the imbalances in your body. Okay? And balance it out so that the patient can feel the effect of your acupuncture. That is how you are saying that I feel good about it.
So you're saying it works on the central nervous system of the body.
Yes.
That's the basis of how it works.
Absolutely.
So using that logic,
Hmm.
it should be very good for things like anxiety, depression, some of the mental health issues which are so prevalent in the world today.
Absolutely. Anxiety, depression, fear, insecurities.
So maybe it should be made compulsory in a lot of, what's the word for it? How can I put this? Modern medicine, so to say. Maybe it should be compulsory to sit alongside a lot of modern medicine.
Right now, I see a lot of practitioners do combining it, do advocating it, that no, you can try acupuncture instead of going for harsh medication.
So do you think in India they're working alongside? Because in India, a lot of traditional medicine as well as modern medicine do coexist, and it has coexisted for centuries. Are more and more doctors embracing it?
Yes, absolutely. I'm researching with Tara Cancer Hospital. So that's a very good integration of modern as well as ancient therapy.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I work with a lot of IVF doctors here, which really
Yes.
advocate and support acupuncture assisted IVFs for cases which are really, really difficult. So that is where we come into play, because simple cases can be successful easily.
Right.
But cases which
Right.
are not easily successful are referred to us, and that is where we give them results. So that
Right.
is also an approach which is very, very good. I see a lot of doctors referring to us, pediatrics, like small babies who, they don't want to start with antibiotics and stuff. So we get a lot of patients who are like small children to us. So that is also opening, and we have many doctors also who come to us like for small pains and aches and muscular and other pains and aches also.
And Darren, tell me, in the UK, do you feel it exists alongside modern medicine? TCM, happily, does it exist, or is there still resistance?
I think there's always a little resistance with the older generation, but I think there's a bigger and bigger body of research now, with very good studies showing that Chinese medicine is incredibly effective, and a lot of very good peer-reviewed studies which are swaying Western medicine's kind of approach. And I also have a lot of referrals from GPs, consultants, and I do a lot of IVF work, and it's very integrated actually, which is what's nice about it. And I think in the UK, there's a lot of the IVF assisted fertility kind of clinics themselves, and the consultants are very aware of how effective Chinese medicine is, and they tend to refer quite a lot. I think there are other specialisms or directions of Western medicine. It's not as well integrated, but certainly with assisted fertility, it is here. And
Darren and Jasmine, you both talked about in our conversations about assisted fertility. Sort of assisting with IVF. Do you ever work with just fertility without IVF? So someone comes to you with fertility.
Yeah. I'd say, out of all of the fertility patients that I work with, about 70%, 60 to 70% are sort of what we call natural fertility. And then the rest are assisted fertility. And we're very good. I'm sure you agree as well. We're very good with the gray area where Western medicine doesn't really know what to do, especially what we call unexplained infertility. Blockages in fallopian tubes that aren't complete tubal blockages, but where there's perhaps fluid or something like that Western medicine doesn't want to go in and do anything about. Polycystic ovarian syndrome, if people don't want to do assisted fertility, we can help the body to better process, from a Western perspective, we could call it have a better function of of the processing of sugar, lower their insulin resistance, for instance, and help the body function in a more the metabolic function much more effectively, and that tends to have a regulatory effect on the period and things like that. So it's very effective for fertility issues that are either yet undiagnosed by Western medicine or have been diagnosed, but there isn't really a clear strategy necessarily.
What about you, Jasmine? Do you also do the same?
Yes, absolutely.
So you've had clients come to you who are not going through IVF, who just want help with fertility. And do you have any kind of earth-shattering success stories to tell us?
Yeah, of course I have. I'll just share a case where the girl, her endometrium lining was 4 mm and it was not growing in spite of all the efforts and everything. And if ideally the endometrium lining has to be around 8 mm, and she would not menstruate. Okay. During her menstrual cycle, she would just release a little powdery like substance, but not blood as such. So we were working on her. We were trying to, balance her uterus, improve the blood flow and all that thing. So luckily the couple were more happier working and balancing the uterus. So we got the time and we started working on the uterus. And before even we could think of IVF, the girl conceived and she has a nice daughter.
Lovely. What an amazing story. Thank you for that.
This was like a very rare thing where at 4 or 5 mm of endometrium lining, we can conceive because the uterus was very well balanced.
Wow. So Darren, I want to ask you about herbal medicine, because I know that you give herbal medicine and I don't find that many TCM practitioners in the UK who give herbal medicines. Do you find that people are very suspicious of the herbal medicine?
I think there's a little resistance to it sometimes. Obviously not with my Asian patients. That everyone from the East has grown up taking Chinese herbs, and and even in Cantonese cooking, it's all of the herbs. Well, not all of them, but a great deal of the herbs are used as a daily food source, ultimately in soups and stews, and it's very common in the culture. But certainly, Western patients have a bit more resistance.
Every time I've mentioned herbs to someone, the Chinese herbs, people's reactions always, do you know what's in it? There's always people are always distrusting of it. I wanted to ask you to recommend some herbs like for common ailments like insomnia or digestive issues or...
Yeah, I mean, yes and no. I can. So, for instance, in Chinese medicine for sleep issues, we would use something called Ren. It's not very easy to get for most people. But to be honest, in the clinic with people, if I'm not giving them, if their resistance to Chinese herbs is there, and that sometimes is the case, we can fall back and people can very safely take magnesium. Magnesium's a great tool for aiding sleep, very good for relaxing the central nervous system, great for relaxing muscles, and very safe to take. In Chinese medicine, we can use some herbs that can tonify the digestive system, so things like ginger, which are really useful for making the stomach function better. If we're feeling a little colder and not enough sort of defensive energy on the exterior, then you can add things like cinnamon, but cinnamon bark will be very good for doing that. Add a little bit more what we call yang. It's a yang tonic. Chinese herbs, as we talked about with patients earlier on, can be mint, ginger, garlic, spring onions. They're all regular foods. A lot of them are
so you're saying use the more
everywhere.
common ones.
Very
because
easy.
They won't have side effects. They'll be easily available. Just use what's in your kitchen.
Absolutely.
I also want to talk quickly about cupping. So now I know it's become famous because of the celebrities have been doing cupping and everything. Jasmine, I know you have a number of celebrity clients in India. Can you explain, Jasmine, how cupping helps treat various conditions?
So basically, cupping is exerting negative pressure to improve the blood flow in that area. Okay. So in cupping, when we are doing dry cupping, it is essentially for muscle aches and pains. Okay. That is just through a gun, we create a vacuum. Okay. Essentially, wet cupping, where we draw blood out of the skin, is done when there is a lot of stagnation, when there is heat syndrome, there is a lot of inflammation in the body. That is the time when we do wet cupping. And fire cupping is done for, again, activating your central nervous system. It is done for detoxification. It is done to help strengthen up your digestive system. So, different forms of cupping are done for different purposes. For detox, I use acupuncture and fire cupping. For any digestive issues, cupping on your abdomen is amazing result.
The body work or tweener, the body work and manual therapy, I know is a big part of Chinese treatment. How is this different from a normal massage, Darren?
Tweener is a method. It's a little bit more like physio or sports massage. It's very targeted usually. It can be a general treatment, but really it's more about targeting specific areas where you have an issue. And there's lots of research to show that the different types of hand techniques that we have with Tweener is actually where the needling techniques probably came from, because there are vibration techniques, there are very fast movement techniques, there are like fixed long pressure techniques. There's many different ways of approaching Tweener, and the traditional methods have or they help to underline and support the way you do your needling techniques. So they're very much integrated in terms of how things work. But Tweener is mostly working on opening up the sinew channels in order that qi and blood can flow, and your connective tissue, if we look at it from a Western perspective, can have correct amount of blood moving through the tissue unobstructed. Because when you have an obstruction of blood flow through the tissue, atrophy, stagnation of fluids, lymph, everything builds up, and then you end up with more pressure, more stiffness, and then over time atrophy, and we can't move. So people get very, very serious.
And it's not necessarily relaxing, right?
It's not a relaxing Swedish style massage. It's much more like a deep tissue or a physio, or it's the idea is that at the end of the treatment, or at least the following few days, you'll have a lot of relief and hopefully resolution of your pain and symptoms that you came in for. That's the idea.
The other thing that I really love about Chinese medicine was exactly what you said, was that how everything needs to be in balance. And you also need to work in balance with the seasons, which is absolutely wonderful because it really brings you close to nature. And
absolutely.
Jasmine, in your book, AcuTips, I know you've talked about this. And can you give us some practical tips from your book, which will help us with daily health issues?
Okay. So one tip, which is definitely not in my AcuTip book, but I would like to definitely share, is that generally what we see in modern time is that we all have like a monotonous way of exercising. According to Chinese philosophy, your exercises also should be according to the seasons. Like each and every season, again, is basically manifesting or is controlled by certain energies, right? So like when the spring season is there, wood energy is more active. So that is the time you do a lot of stretching exercises. You stretch the muscles, you increase the blood flow of the muscles. Winters are the season which are like very slow down seasons. So this is the time you are not supposed to exercise, or you are exercising which will slow down your heartbeat rate, like maybe slow yogas, wherein You are not actually using your body energies or expelling or draining of your body energies, but you are trying to build up, because winters is the time when your body hibernates. So exercises also have to be done according to the seasons. So this is how seasons also manifest into 5 elements.
And tell me, Jasmine, do you have any other lifestyle tips or diet tips that you want to leave people with?
Important guidance that I would give to today's generation is to follow the circadian rhythm. Okay. We have a circadian rhythm which is set by nature in our body. Okay. So in that circadian rhythm, we have like time slots in acupuncture given to each and every organ. All right. So like starting from 3 a.m. to 5 a.m. is the lung time. That is the time where your lung energy is excess. Okay. 5 to 7 is the time of your large intestine. That is the reason, like first thing when we wake up, we evacuate, because your large intestine energy is active. All right. So that is, if you wake up early, your large intestine energy is active, so you evacuate well. If you do not wake up during this time, then you will evacuate, but you will not evacuate like when you are working in the active time frame. So then from 7 to 9 is the stomach energy. That is the time your breakfast should be done. All right. After that is your digestive energies till 8, and then your repairing energies, your liver energies and all that start at around 11ish. So by 11 o'clock, you should be down and you should be sleeping, because that is when your liver energy is working at its peak, so that your body can repair, recover, rejuvenate, so you are ready for the next day. So it's very important to follow the circadian rhythm. That really helps to stay healthy.
Darren, any recommendations that you would like to leave our listeners with on diet and lifestyle?
They're very similar. I think they're very similar to Jasmine's, that seasonal energies require seasonal eating. So I think, when we follow what's available in terms of diet, we tend to live healthier and with the seasons. We're especially in the UK here, you can buy anything, can't you? You can buy pineapple, you can buy papaya. It's freezing outside, maybe like 3 degrees, and we can eat all these cool fruits. And the problem with that is that summer fruits, especially summer tropical fruits, they're very cooling. And we shouldn't be eating them really at that particular time of year. We should be eating food that's available to us at that time. And obviously, the occasional papaya, the occasional pineapple is fine. But if you're eating that every day and that's your kind of your lifestyle, and you eat the same things continuously, this isn't following the seasons. And this is, it comes back again to this idea of resisting change. In the Chinese medicine calendar, as Jasmine was saying, there's seasonal changes. And actually there is a seasonal change every 2 weeks. So we said there's 24 seasons within the whole year period, which means every 2 weeks, we're just changing a little bit, we're changing a little bit, we're changing a little bit. And then where we tend to see it, obviously, is at the bigger seasonal changes when we have the equinoxes and the solstices, right? So they're interested in the seasonal changes and being in as much as you can in line with those changes, because in Taoism, the idea is to slowly go back and be more blended with everything and to be completely blended with nature. So if we're not aware of seasonal changes, if we never go out, if we never spend any time outside in nature, it's very difficult to be connected to the seasonal changes, and that will create a level of resistance. And it's very prominent in the UK, especially in London. A lot of people are in an office, they're on the tube, they're back in their house with central heating on, and they don't really stay outside very much. And that's why in traditional Chinese cultures, they're doing exercise outside every day. You go outside, you practice in the park, and as the seasons change, you see it, you experience that, and then it keeps you much more in touch with that. So I think being outside more is really important. Seasonal eating is really important. Local eating as much as we can. And if we have a good way of expressing our emotions, frustrations, we have output for those kind of things. As Jasmine was saying, you change your exercise plan throughout the year. More meditation in the winter. Springtime is about stretching the tendons, lots of stretching, lengthening, opening the body up. Summertime is more about moving more. And autumn is a funny time where we're kind of starting to go back in. But as Jasmine was saying, it's lots of lung is autumn. So we want to have lots of breathing exercises during that period. And it's often when we start to get respiratory illnesses, isn't it? Autumn going into winter.
Yes, going into
strengthening winter. Those as we go is the way to do it.
Thank you for your practical tips and for sharing your knowledge with us today. I'm very grateful. Thank you.
Thanks for inviting me. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So TCM is actually a living tradition. It exists in a big way today and it's growing. And as you can see from our conversation, it's very scientific. It focuses on prevention, which is incredible, personalization, and also on the interconnectedness of the mind, the body, and the spirit. I hope you enjoyed this conversation, and I hope you're going to take away a lot of information, and it's going to help you a lot. The traditional Chinese medicine conversation that we've just had in our season, Healing Traditions Across Cultures. We hope to see you next time. Thank you.
Then we have the feathers from various birds, his feathers in his body to make an instrument that calls upon the spirit of the eagle.
One of the common forms of spiritual illness is possession illness. And so a person suffering from possession illness can have physical symptoms that are not theirs, can have emotional, psychological, and mental symptoms that aren't theirs, can have energetic symptoms that aren't theirs.